Yes, and welcome again to another video by Clinical Trader. Today we're going to look at BHP, and I'll do my best to check it out for you. So BHP, and where are we at with BHP? Well, I went back and had a look at their quarterly report. This is their quarterly announcement released on the 21st of April 2020. And BHP has a few positives on its side in that it's fairly well diversified within the commodity sector. Um, I mean, you can get an idea of that. I've highlighted down here just some of the areas they're involved in. So petroleum, iron ore, metallurgical coal. They're actually involved also in copper, gold, and silver, and probably also zinc. I know that they have their fingers in uranium as well. So they're very well diversified, and that's probably a strength of theirs, which should, in any ordinary circumstances, give some upside potential. So the quarterly came out, and really interesting. I'm not sure why you would put this at the top of your quarterly about the highest priority. What would be the highest priority? And it comes down to safety, health, and well-being of our workforce and communities. Now, I'm not saying that that's not important, but why is that the first thing we see at the top of their quarterly? I mean, the shareholders, because that's who this is addressed to, are more interested in how the operations and profits are going. So, go figure. Not really sure why that's there. I mean, yes, it should be in the report, but maybe further down. All right, so yes, they're claiming that their financial position is strong. I'm not going to go into that, mainly because I didn't want the video to be too long. But let's take it for granted. If they say that's the case, in this example, we'll assume that that's correct. Look, they're basically saying that in terms of production, in other words, the business itself running and producing something worth selling looks like it's going to continue to meet guidance for the 2020 financial year. So, that's positive. But these things can change, I guess, depending on how economic situation is and what happens with coronavirus. We'll see what happens there. However, they've acknowledged that there is some temporary suspension of operations. Now, I'm not really sure. It's in relation to this Antamina. I don't know what that is, where that is. It sounds like it's one of their mines, but perhaps that's it might be near a town or something like that. That's the only reason I can think why you would want to suspend operations there. Or you might have a team member there that's fallen ill. Okay. Also, another location also temporarily in care and maintenance, meaning it's shut down, and only the skeleton staff are there, just keeping the place in shape, really, so that when they kick it back into gear, it won't be too much work. So they'll just be doing things like oil checks, maintenance, things like that. I didn't get any further than that. A couple of things I will point out, though, is that the March quarterly versus December, this is probably what I'm interested in terms of understanding the impact of coronavirus and economic slowdown. And you can see that quite a lot of these. So petroleum's down 11%, copper down 7%, iron ore down just 1%. So that's traveling okay. Coal is down 16%, and energy coal down 5%. And nickel's actually up 53%. Now, does that mean that they've struck gold and everything's going really well? Or does it mean that the previous quarter was so bad that it's really quite easily to record a 53% improvement? And I actually think that's probably the case. And it says in here, higher volumes following completion of major maintenance activities. So that tells me there are clearly problems going on at the mine. So yeah, that's really hard to see. You need to check the next quarterly to see whether that improvement is continued or whether it's unchanged or whether it's fallen over again. That would be concerning if it did. Okay, so that's BHP, their quarterly. I won't go into all those details down there. So that's kind of like the state of the company. So I thought I'd take a look at a couple of other charts that will give us an indication as to, okay, so they're selling all these things down here, petroleum, iron ore, and coal. Well, what prices are they getting for them? So we'll take a look at a few charts of petroleum, iron ore, and coal. Now, iron ore, I really couldn't get a lot of data on that through my charting package. I used to have a chart on it, but I don't know where it's gone. Maybe I deleted it. Okay, so first up, we'll take a look at copper. Okay, here's a chart on copper. Now you can see here that really September last year, that's 2018, we really had this long consolidation period where copper's just gone up and down, hit these bottoms. It keeps bouncing off this grey area here I drew in, and it doesn't seem to be able to get it much above this volume profile. It did a little bit here, and you probably would have been caught out had you bought this breakout, only for it to roll over. But of course, that's January 21 when coronavirus really began to show its head, really. So that's probably not that surprising. But anyway, and you can see that it's rolled over. It was at $2.83, hit a low in March of $2.09, and it's sort of bouncing around trying to work its way out. You can see that latest day. This is a daily chart. It's really just, had this down day. We'll see what happens next week. But is it just another one of these and we'll turn back higher? Time will tell. So that's copper. All right, next up we have, this is coal. Okay, and you can see that the coal has been in a downtrend for a very long time. That's a 2-hour chart. Let's look at that daily. Okay, that's where we are. And you can see that it's gone below this previous low over here. What's that? That's January 2016. So they're not getting a lot of money for their sales in coal, and that might explain a little bit that that fall in the percentage we looked at earlier. So not looking good. You would have liked to have seen it hold probably where this low here is, but it just couldn't do it. It rolled over and away it went. And of course, this is all coronavirus related. All right, so that doesn't mean that this will keep going, but until we see, signs that use of coal is going to bounce back, then this will just either stay on this trajectory or will go lower. But until that, we're not going to see it kick up. But of course, when it does, there could be some good money to be made there. So that's coal. Next one is uranium. Actually, no, I couldn't show this. It doesn't show up. Yeah, so I don't know what's going on there. I looked in the indexes and everything, but I can't seem to find anything. Yeah, so, they're those 3 areas we talked about. We could look at crude oil, but we know the story there. Prices have crashed, so we'll just wait and see. So that's the price of what they're selling, and it makes it harder to make a profit. But they do say in here somewhere, where was it? That they're low cost operations. So it's not costing them a lot to get these commodities out of the ground, but it is, it's obviously going to hit the profit. And over time, I guess, depending on what happens with these prices, I would expect this to remain low. But that's BHP. You've probably got other producers out there that have higher costs, and they would really be struggling at the moment. And all of their share charts are showing the same pattern, and that is lower prices because they're really struggling to make profit. Let's look at the BHP chart. Okay, so here's BHP. We're looking at the daily chart here, and I've drawn in a few areas that I think are of interest. So we have in this grey area here quite a lot of volume that was traded as outlined by these two nodes here, and so this is a real critical point. So it's really hard to know exactly what's going to happen until we get a move one way or the other out of that zone. This red line is indicating that if we do break to the downside out of that grey zone, this might be a target we look at. Okay, you can see the volume node over here, but you can also see that the volume measured between this point up here, and this point over here, I probably should move that to the low. That's the low there. So you can see that, yeah, you've got a bit of a point here. So if we break below that as well, we're probably going to go all the way down and stop. I would expect at this point where the arrow finishes. On the other hand, if we break up, you would want to see it break this downtrend. Now you might be buying, for example, if it bounces off this low here, you might make a purchase, but you'd be tempted to sell if it bounced back off this and headed lower. But if it broke through it, I think you could expect it to get up here at, what's that, $35. So you're sort of making sort of 15% on that trade if it came to fruition. Would I be buying at 29? 29 flat. Yeah, I might have a crack at 29 flat only because you've got this previous low here, which will act as a bit of support. But really, this upward trend, if that breaks, that's why I think this is a critical time right now. It's going to go one way or the other. The other thing that I would look at is what's happening with the overall markets. Markets are looking a little on the weak side to me. So that's going to make it harder for BHP to head north. Because I think if the markets are looking weak, then I think those other commodity prices will look weak. And again, that's going to hit their bottom line. So, you've got to take all that into consideration as well. If we roll over, I think there's a significant amount of room definitely to get down here. And we could even get lower. We could even come down and touch this previous low here. We'll go lower again. Look at that weekly chart. The weekly chart actually looks a little on the bullish side. You've got this cross down here, through here. But it's possible because of this. This was such a violent downturn that these are kind of negated because you've already had a fairly significant move from, what's that, $24 all the way up to $30. So, that's like 20, 22, 23% move straight there. So that negates the indicator a little bit to some degree. So, yeah, would I rely on that? Probably not. I'd be more inclined to look at what's happening in the bigger picture, macroeconomic wise, to work out what's going to happen with BHP. Anyway, that's my take on it. Take it or leave it. And thanks for listening, guys.